Good evening, everybody, and welcome to St. Matthew's Episcopal Cathedral. We're very excited to have you here this evening. A little note, if you do have your cell phone, if you wouldn't mind, please turning it off or muting that would be terrific. Thank you very much. If need be, there is a restroom around the corner there. Tonight, I'm very excited to introduce to you our Bishop, the Right Reverend Paul Gordon Chandler. He's going to come up and tell us about our program this evening. Again, welcome everyone.
Good evening and welcome. Can you hear me okay? You can, okay. Good evening and welcome. And on behalf of the Episcopal Church in Wyoming and Caravan, I want to thank you for coming out this evening to this special event, which is actually the closing event of the Abraham Out of One mini art exhibition, which actually surrounds you in many ways here. At the outset, I want to express our gratitude to St. Matthew's Cathedral, and specifically to Dean Brian Gross, who you just heard a minute ago, for welcoming us and hosting this exhibition in this very special sacred place. I also want to thank our partners for this Abraham Out of One mini initiative here in Laramie. They are the Wyoming Humanities Council. Sean, can you just raise your hand? He's our the new executive director. Everybody in the state should know Sean. And then Wyoming Interfaith Network. Jordan, where are you? Let's see. Can you stand? Yes, we have the director of the... And then I also want to thank especially, the reason that all this was able to even happen is the sponsor was the Foundation for the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming. And our director is here. Press, Stevens, you want to raise your hand? None of them knew I'm highlighting them tonight, but we're very grateful for their sponsorship of this special initiative that's actually taking place throughout the state. Today, with all the media hype and stereotypes and fear-mongering and certainly misrepresentations, there's no question that our world and our society is more polarized than ever, at least in terms of recent history. And like never before, all this, I think, needs to be counteracted by creative initiatives that are based on our similarities and what we all hold in common. And that's what this exhibition that you're sitting around, Abraham Out of One Mini, is all about. It is a creative demonstration of dialogue. Abraham Out of One Mini is an art exhibit that focuses on what we can learn about embracing the other and welcoming the stranger, and learning about that from that ancient figure Abraham that many of the monotheistic faiths trace their heritage and history to, shedding light on how we can actually live together more harmoniously. And to illustrate that, for this exhibit, 3 celebrated Middle Eastern visual artists, contemporary artists, from the faith traditions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, came together to produce artwork, paintings with messages about creating cultures of peace and of harmony and of justice and of healing, regardless of whatever cultural, religious, or ethnic background one comes from. And so this exhibit actually is touring the state. It was in Rock Springs, it's open there, and it was at the Western Wyoming Community College, the art gallery there. It's been here for 2 weeks. This is the closing night. It moves next to Lander, the Fremont County Pioneer Museum, and it will be there from the 14th of May through the 28th, in case you'd like to visit it there. And just like here, there will be a whole array of other associated programming around it, where the art's the catalyst for various events to seek to address this idea of welcoming the stranger and embracing the other. One of the groups that has most successfully built bridges between those of diverse backgrounds has been the Sufis, the mystics of Islam. And like the mystics in other faiths, such as in Christianity or Judaism, Sufis have focused on a fresh approach toward oneness with the divine, with the transcendent, and with everything that exists in our world. In other words, all creation. Sufism is beautifully known for its flexibility and its wide variety. And Sufis like Al-Khalaj and Zahrawardi and Ibn Arabi, Hafiz, and of course many know Jalaluddin Rumi, the great Sufi poet, have tried to help people see God and each other with fresh eyes, from which all traditions have much to learn. And most importantly, for the message actually of this exhibition, Sufism has shown us the critical importance of fully embracing all people, regardless of their background. As Rumi said so beautifully, I profess the religion of love. Love is my religion and my faith. And with this focus on the transcendent as really unifying all peoples, Sufis put a tremendous amount of emphasis on music, which of course is that universal language that has the ability to heal the differences that divide. And because of music's transcendent quality, it takes us all, if you will, to kind of new safe spaces to encounter those different than ourselves, echoing the words of Rumi when he wrote, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I will meet you there. Tonight, we are honored to have with us Amir Vahab. Amir Vahab has been described by the New York Times as an ambassador for a silenced music. Originally from Iran, Amir Vahab is one of the most celebrated Middle Eastern musicians in North America, with a special focus on Sufi and Middle Eastern folk music. Additionally, as you will see, he has been honored as a peacemaker. It's a real honor for us to have him with us this evening, as well as Gail and Yvette, who are part of the Ensemble, and they've come to us all from New York. Thankfully, they were able to make it. Their flight was delayed, so they would have missed their flight to Laramie, and so we had to go and pick them up, go down and pick them up in Denver. As we welcome Amir Vahab and his ensemble, I leave you with the words of that profound 14th century Persian Sufi poet and mystic Hafiz. The heart is a 1,000-stringed instrument that can only be tuned with love. Would you please welcome with me Amir Vahab.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is our pleasure to spend the next hour and a half playing music and sharing some beautiful mystical poetry. Paul already has eloquently described what mysticism is, but I'm often asked to say a few words about what Sufism is. The word Sufi, which is an Arabic word, has two meanings. One is wool, and the other one is pure, filtered, and cleansed. So Sufis are simply people that are trying to cleanse, filter, purify their inner selves. And because this mysticism is based in Islam, so they are as old as the religion, 1,400 years ago. From the very beginning of Islam, you had Sufis. So for Sufis, like the rest of the mystics, you have amazing mystics in Christianity, especially early Christianity. You will see that they basically are saying the same thing. Of course, the truth is one, God is one, And that is why I especially was excited about tonight's program, because it's in the honor of Abraham, my very great-great-grandfather. As you know, for some unknown reason to me, at least, if you know, please help me out. For all the prophets that we know, they're all from Middle East. So especially Abraham was playing a very important role. We still, every time we talk about Islam or Sufism, we say it's an Abrahamic religion, which, of course, has three very important pillars: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So Sufis use, again, like most other mystics, music is one of the tools they use to delve within and meditate. Again, in all different religions, Abrahamic or non-Abrahamic. Even in Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and so on, you see that they use chanting, remembrance. There are different expressions. We say zikr or zikr, which means mentioning. The direct word translates to mentioning. Mentioning who? The beloved. Who else but the beloved? And of course that, for the mystics, is no one but God. So the other expressions such as remembrance, prayers, chanting, all they are fortifying this one word, remembrance, and mentioning the beloved. Because one of human weak points is oftentimes we forget, why are we in this world? Who created us? Why are we sent here? What are we supposed to do while we are here? And where do we go after we are over with this temporary life, whether it's 120 years? This morning, interestingly, somebody sent me a video via WhatsApp showing a 112-year-old man in California. Well, it's wonderful that, you know, some of us, we get to live that long. But eventually, we all go to the eternal realm. And that is to be celebrated. It's not a bad thing. At least in New York, where I am, I've been living for the past 45 years, you know, people seem to, every time you talk about leaving this world, dying, you know, they brush it under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about death. But mystics do. And it's part of our life, actually, because the life does not end with our corporal and terrestrial body. It continues. So now that we have described what the Sufis like to do, let me start with saying what a beautiful church or cathedral this is. I always loved from my childhood places of worship in general, but especially churches and cathedrals. I don't know why. Maybe some people believe in successive lives. If that is true, then maybe in one of my past lives, or many of my past lives, I've been a Christian, because as soon as I see this, I feel at home. That's one thing I wanted to share. And the other is, well, I'm an old man. You could see that my white beard attests to that. I was born right after Noah's Ark. And when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, it was not as fashionable as now to be interfaith, and nowadays they came up with a new expression, multi-face, which is nice. So 55 years ago was very few people that were truly interfaith, but I had the pleasure and the honor of growing that way because of the Sufi teaching that we had. And when I come to gatherings like this and I see people from different faiths and, coming to unite their hearts, always feel like paradise must be like this. Because God does not differentiate, oh, you're a Jew, you're a Buddhist, you're a Hindu, you're Zoroastrian, so you can't, We are all God's children, and especially, but Abrahamic are even closer. I mean, you study the three Bibles, you see that in principles, they all share. So without further ado, tonight we are going to use mainly three eminent Sufi masters who happen to be also poets. And this is how they share their knowledge, their wisdom. One is Rumi. And I'm especially happy that we are in a very Rumi place to celebrate Rumi. Sometimes we do it in a very small place. But, the other one is Hafiz. Rumi is from 13th century, Persian poet who chose to live in Turkey by the age of 11. They had no choice because the Mongols were attacking the Central Asia and the Middle East, as you know. So he was only 11. His father ran to first to Mecca, and then Iraq, and then Syria, and fourth place they landed was Turkey, but he did reside there until his last day. Then Hafiz from 14th century, the next 100 years, and also another Turkish poet whose name is Yunus. He was contemporary of Rumi, and you will hear I'm lucky because I speak Persian, and Rumi wrote over 60,000 lines of poetry in his mother tongue, Persian, so I can have access to what he really has said. And every Wednesday night, actually, we have a Rumi night online. If any of you are interested, you can get in touch with any of us after the concert and concert talk. So what else can I say? Well, the good news is we have very good translations that I have went over it word by word, and we have it in English because despite the fact I know every one of you speak perfect Persian, you may still appreciate to hear it in English. So to my left we have Gail Wiggin on vocals and frame drum. She would be also reciting poetry for you, so give it up for Gail. To my right, we have Yvette Gugas on vocals and frame drum. Also, she would be reciting this beautiful poetry for you in English. Again, because I am a senior, before I forget, I'd like to thank, of course, Paul. Again, in New York, we just refer to each other with the first name. I don't mean any disrespect, so please do feel my deep respect and appreciation for Paul, who has invited us gracefully to be with you. So thank you for Paul. I like to also thank Bruce, who actually opened this this beautiful gathering for us. And not the last, not the least, but the last is our sound engineer up there. So give it up for our sound engineer. Once in a while, I will recite only a line or two in the original language. I know you may not know, but then again, you travel. It takes you back how these words sounded 810 years ago by Rumi when he was uttering this poetry. In the West, we say writing poetry because most poets, they sit there and they write. In Persian, we say uttering poetry because it just comes out of them. Rumi was, as you know, he has over 60,000 lines of poetry, none of which was written when he was behind the desk and, pen and pencil and paper. While he was praying and chanting and whirling, these poems were one after the other oozing out of him like a volcano. And his older son was writing it. Of course, on those days, we didn't have tape recorders, but he tried as fast as he could to write as his father was, while he was intoxicated with the divine love, to write these, not to lose them. So without further ado, I'll sing them in the original language, and we will stop to share with you the translations of some of these. از آمدنم نبود گردون را سو و از آمدن و رفتنم از بهر چه بود Thank you so much. How is the sound? Can you hear us fine? Great, okay. Well, all the credit goes to our friend upstairs. If some of you, because sometimes the theme's going to get picked up and the rhythm's going to be faster and faster, so I'm giving you a heads up. And lots of time after the program is finished, people come to me and says, "Oh my God, the music was so nice. I felt like dancing, but I thought, maybe that's a disrespect." So it's by no stretch of imagination is disrespect. If I actually looked earlier on, there are 2 rows at the very side. If you feel like, if the music gives you that inspiration, feel free to fill up those 2 sides. I don't know, I didn't ask if it's okay with the church and cathedral, but if it is okay, it's certainly okay with us. God is to be celebrated, not to be mourned, and our unity is certainly to be celebrated. So feel free to do so. As I promised, we're going to now share some of these beautiful poets and poetry with you in English, so you get the feel.
This is Rumi. What is praised is one, so the praise is one too. Many jugs being poured into a huge basin. All religions, all this singing, one song. The differences are just illusion and vanity. Sunlight looks slightly different on this wall than it does on that wall, and a lot different on this other one, but it is still one light. We have borrowed these clothes, these time and space personalities from a light, and when we praise, we pour them back in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This place has natural reverb, so that we don't need. Except it's sometimes hard to hear ourselves because the sound goes back and comes back to us. By the time it reaches you, you know, is, how can I say? The musicians know what I'm talking about. How many musicians do we have amongst the crowd? Okay, well, that's plenty. What about the others? How many singers? How many singers think that you are not a musician? Hands up, this is important. Well, yeah, I have news for you. If you sing, you are a musician. And your vocal cords are the cords of your instrument. You are actually the most beautiful instrument ever made on earth by God directly. So don't underestimate singing. And the rest, of course, you play the radio, so that's not so bad. So, again, as I promised, let's have Yvette share a beautiful poem with you. You know, Paul, as you get older, then everybody seems like your children and your grandchildren. You feel like just joking with them. So forgive me if I'm not too serious. So.
Beware of confining yourself to a particular belief and denying all else, for much good would elude you. Indeed, the knowledge of reality would elude you. Be in yourself a matter for all forms of belief, for God is too vast and tremendous to be restricted to one belief rather than another.
Thank you so much. Sure. So here is one of Rumi's poem in Persian. So I'll read it to you in the original language, how it sounded. So fasten your seatbelts. I am taking you back to 810 years ago to the presence of Rumi. If you listen to him, that's how it would sound. Sultan mani, Sultan mani. Andar dil u jan iman mani. Ham mehr mani, ham mah mani, ham la'l mani, ham khan mani. باغ و چمن و فردوس منی سرو سمن و خندان منی در من بدمی من زنده شوم یک جان چه بود صد جان منی تا بنده شود جانم ز دمت ظلمت شکن زندان منی. As you can see, Persian poetry must have the perfect meter, and every end of each line must rhyme. So, which of course makes it more difficult to write poetry because you really have to make sure that all the syllables are equal and all the endings are rhyming. Yet you have to be able to convey the message. And the message is a very precise message. Rumi gives you a map to your final destination. That is why I'm often sad to say that if not all, majority of the translations that are out there are far from being accurate. I myself am a linguist. I studied that when I was in Paris. the first thing you need is to have the perfect command of the language that you translating, and of course perfect command of the second language into which you translate. So, well, the second is not a problem. Those who translate it into French or German or English, their French and German and English is pretty good. The problem is they don't understand the Persian. And I tell you, as someone who is Persian, who spoke this language my entire life, 64 years, and it's so hard to understand all the nuances and all the metaphors and all the Sufi expressions, etc. And then people just take it upon themselves to 1, 2, 3, just come up with some kind of translation, either at the mercy of dictionary, which does not work, or else they take the previous translations, which are not right in the first place. They just change a few words and then they print it. And because people love Rumi, and they love the message of unconditional love, as you heard earlier on, so they buy it. But a lot of stuff is missing. A lot of important points are missing. So that's another day and another conversation. We get more into the poetry at some point. So here is this, what I just recited in Persian. Now we're going to sing that for you. Sultan Mani means you are my sultan. So he refers to sometimes his master, just like the disciples of Jesus that loved him. He loved his master, but also refers to God, because you may know that in the Quran, one of God's name is Malak, which means literally king. Thank you so much. Gail, would you like to share another one? Whose is this from? Hafiz or more? Hafiz. Okay, so this one's from Hafiz.
I wish I could speak like music. I wish I could put the swaying splendor of the fields into words so that you could hold truth against your body and dance. I am trying the best I can with this crude brush, the tongue, to cover you with light. I wish I could speak like divine music. I want to give you the sublime rhythms of this earth and the sky's limbs as they joyously spin and surrender. Surrender against God's luminous breath. Hafez wants you to hold me against your precious body and dance. Dance.
علی شیر خدا یا شاه مردان به هر جا عاشق است در دشت وا کن به هر جا عاشق است در دشت وا کن چراغ آسمان نظر دل تو مناجات مرا پیش خدا کن مناجات مرا پیش خدا کن یا که نزار ملا محمد جان سید گل لاله زار بابا دلبر جان یکه بریم به مزار ملا محمد جان مزار لاله دی سر کوی بلند فریاد کردم علی شیر خدا رو یاد کردم علی شیر خدا رو یاد کردم علی شیر خدا یا شاه مردان دل ناشاد ما رو شاد کردم دل ناشاد ما رو شاد کردم یکه بریم به مزار ملا محمد جان هده گل لاله زار بابا دلبر جان یکه بریم به مزار ملا محمد جان هده گل لاله زار بابا دلبر جان Thank you so much. I wanted to say a few words about the Whirling Dervish. May I borrow your frame drum? How many of you have seen this kind of dance? Well, more than I thought. Okay. Any of you have tried to whirl? Only a couple. Okay. So this is interesting because I wanted to say a few words. First of all, when we say Sufis, just like any other groups, they are in different levels and they have different traditions to an extent because wherever you have Muslims, you could have potentially Sufis. As it is the mystical heart of the Islam, and it is a very vast religion. You're talking about between 1.7, some say 1.8 billion people. So from Central Asia to the Middle East. Of course, there's another fallacy. Paul knows these things better than I do, I suppose, having lived in those countries. Yes, 1400 years ago, it was the motherland, as we say, was the cradle of Islam, was Saudi Arabia. And the Arabs, therefore, were the Muslims were the Arabs. Do you know that today, 1400 years later, is only 26% of the Muslims are Arabs? The rest are everything else. And so that's why, depending on their local traditions and geographic situation and whatever their religion was before that, etc., their language, their culture, their food, their dances, their dresses. So it varies. Some people think that's the only Sufi dance. Not at all. This was created and invented by Rumi. Is one of the thousands of different dances. And of course, Turkey, which is a very smart country, and as you know, one of their most important income is through Sufism. So of course they push this dance, which is beautiful, but like I say, it is one of the very many. And nonetheless, I'll explain to you, because it's beautiful, this signification of the tall hat. They usually have a black cape. If you said most of you have seen it. First, before they do this, they don't call it a dance, incidentally, they call it a practice. Usually takes average of 10 years to really master this practice. Again, like anything else, today is commercialized, and all the dancers, they just fake this, and if you're not an expert, you would not know which is the real dance, which is just a copy. It just reminds me of the diamond. You have the real diamond and you have zirconia, that is an imitation of diamond. What is very interesting is a zirconia, which is a fake diamond, cost 50 cents. 50 cents, that's all. Look at the difference. They make them so good now in China and other countries that sometimes really even an expert jeweler cannot tell. Now they have created these devices. If it rings, that means is fake, and if it's otherwise, the naked eye cannot tell the difference. So same thing. There is all these parallel paths and parallel everything, because we are into an era that so much commercialized. And Sufism and Sufi dances are no exception to this rule. I mean, I come from that region, from that tradition. I speak the language, from the religion. But if you're not from all of these above, so it's very hard to know. So we talked earlier on about the different stages of spiritual life. One of them is to leave this terrestrial body and continue in a different format. The tall hat represents actually your tombstone. So first they take this black cape out, they fold it with respect, they kiss it, they put it aside. That represents the density of this world. So when they come out of that black cape, means they have left the world with its density behind. And then they dressed head to toe in white. That represents the shroud with which you're wrapped before you're put into the grave. And again, finally, the tall hat, which represents. Now the whirling, thank you, Gail, for. So the whirling, you have the right hand facing upwards towards the celestials, heavens, God, divinity, with the gesture and intention of begging that one unique God of Abraham that we all believe in, to give you the divine attributes: love, knowledge, wisdom, forgiveness, generosity, etc., etc. And you become the mediator of these divine attributes. And with the left hand facing downwards, you give to the earth and its elements: mineral, vegetal, animal, human. And by turning and whirling and spinning, you spread this divine attributes and the divine energy to all the beings around you. So that's what this beautiful dance, one of many, represents. In my humble opinion, the highest form of Sufi dance is the one that you don't even know what you're doing. You lose yourself so much into that divine love, and you become so intoxicated with that joy and that energy that comes from above that you don't know yourself anymore. To worry about the angles of the wrist, and am I turning good? Is my left hand good? Is my right foot doing the rotation the way it should be? Because there is actually a rotation around you, and then there is rotation imitating the planets and the stars and the sun. That's why you have actually a mentor there that actually oversees all the movements, which is very good. It's imitating the galaxy, etc. But like I say, I've been to many different traditions of Sufis, and the one that I like the most is there is no rules and regulations. You just express. Each one has a different way of expressing. What is important is your intention. There is a verse in the Quran that says, Al-a'malu bin-niyat. It's the intention that counts, more important than the action. So your heart, deep in your heart, you are dancing for the one up there, not to impress someone out there that's watching. You know, sometimes I see these dances are done, and you might have seen they do their heads like that, and they do the body thing in the shoulder, and they add the elbows, and sometimes they come to me, how did I do? I said, well, this is not how it's supposed to be. It says, but the audience get bored. How much can they watch? I said, the audience does not exist when you dance for God. You're dancing for God. No one is there. It's just you and the divine. So, well, that's the unfortunate era of commercialization. Everything is based on materialism, and so it affects and contaminates and deviates many things. And this is nothing new. You read and you see how things change, going back to the time of Jesus. So, incidentally, in practically all the Sufi mystics are very deeply in love with Jesus. You see Jesus all over Rumi's poetry, Hafiz's poetry, Yunus's poetry, and everyone else that we're not mentioning. You may not be as familiar with their names. Not only an average Muslim believe in Jesus, he's mentioned so many times in the Quran, and his miraculous conception through Virgin Mary, who incidentally Mary is considered a saint in Islam, is all mentioned there. So even an average Muslim believe in him as a very high rank. 5, you see, you have between all the 3 Bibles, you have just less than 100 names of prophets, which we pretty much share. But 5 of them are considered the greatest. They call them Ulul Azm. And Jesus is one of them, the greatest prophet ever appeared. But that's average Muslim. Now the Sufis go further, and especially on 8th century, you had some Sufis that said, well, according to the Quran itself, do we have any Muslims here? Okay, yeah, so they were saying, according to the Quran, Jesus is the highest rank prophet ever. And that was Sultan Suleiman's time in Turkey, which was right after Rumi. So they said, this is blasphemy, and we give you a chance. You can't say that Jesus is the highest ever. So as a Muslim, you're not supposed to say that. Of course, this is the fanatic Muslim. And we give you a chance. Just say, you take it back, and you're ready to go home. This is Turkey, 8th century. Look it up. Not one of them agreed. They said, we are happy for our heads to be beheaded if that's what you're going to do to us, to the government. This was the king and the sultan of the time. So they all were martyred. And they were Muslim. They said, we are Muslims, but we are not going to back off from saying that Jesus is the highest creation ever. So, and I tell you, I know most of you expect songs from me. I'll share another story with you. When I was 18, I left home and I went to London, and I lived in London for 3 years. And I went to a Christian school. It's called Abbey School. And we had, every Sunday, of course, we had the service, and we had Bible studies and all that. And because I was interfaith, I used to share my feeling about Jesus and my knowledge, what I have learned. And so people would come to me after the talk and say, well, that's beautiful. When did you become Christian? I said, well, I'm Christian and Jew and Muslim all at the same time. So then they would tap me on the, pat me on the back and say, I see you haven't quite met the Lord. And they said, well, Jesus is the only way, so you have to accept Jesus, or as the only way, forget about the others, or else you don't come to Father except, Jesus says, I am the way and the truth, and no one comes to Father except through me. So as much as I loved him, loves Jesus, but I said to them, well, there are a lot of deformation in the New Testament and the Old Testament. None of them, the Bible was not written, some say 60 years after Jesus, some say more, some say less. And this is the recollection of the disciples. And some of them were not even directly the disciples of Jesus. So then later on they start writing, and then that becomes the Bible, etc. So if I'm not mistaken, by 5th century, you had over 500 different versions of Bible. So the popes of the time came and said, well, let's reduce this to the books we have today. So I said, yeah, this must be one of those deformations. Jesus couldn't have possibly said that this is the only way. What about the Africans? What about the Australians? What about the Aborigines? What about, all these people, some of them in Amazon jungles who never heard about Jesus. So everybody's going to go to hell? That can't be true. So summer comes, and I go back to Iran to visit my parents. Like all the students, by that time I was 19 years old. And I go and see my spiritual mentor, and he says, oh, Amir, how are you doing? Well, what's going on in England? I say, well, I go to this Christian school, actually, and this is one of the things they said, that, is Jesus or that's it. You cannot really reach the truth. And I told them that this cannot be true and is probably deformed. So you're never going to guess what my teacher said. He said, Amir, actually that part is not deformed. That part is true. I was shocked. I said, how could this be true? He says, you don't have to know Jesus. Because I said, what about, the same thing. What about people that live further in this way and that way, or, before Jesus, after Jesus? What about all the souls? He said, there is a place in the spiritual world that is called the city of religion. And Jesus is the gate to that city. So that being who resided inside the body of Jesus, and he said, you would know him when you see him. So you can be a Muslim, there's nothing wrong, but you could be Zoroastrian, you could be Buddhist, no matter what your religion is, even if you're atheist. When you get to that place, you will see him and you recognize him. And you need to go through that gate, and that gate is the very essence of Jesus. So this is the teaching of with which we brought up. I really didn't expect to hear that, but that was very interesting. I mean, it's very scientific, and he himself is incidentally a surgeon, but he teaches people for free all his life. So yeah, so much for the story of Jesus' rank, how beautiful and how eminent he is. So, and incidentally, the same people tell you that Mary is also, for them, for this group of Sufis, just as important, is just physically and bodily at that time was not customary to have 2,000 years ago a women prophet. But the rank of Mary is no less. She was just given a different mission. They're all up there extremely close to God. And they all have so much to say, and God loves them so much. It's good to use them and as a mediator, and that's why all the Sufis, when they mention Mary, they mention Jesus and the rest of the saints and prophets. So whose turn is it to read a poem? Okay, Yvette.
It's actually the name.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I keep the name for later?
Yes, please. Yvette is going to read a poem about the reed flute. Now, before she reads what Rumi said about the reed flute, I like to say a few words about it as more as a musician. Reed flute is just a cylinder, does not have any mouthpiece like clarinet has or the flute has. Is just a cylinder, and when you blow on it, it does not make any sound. You see each end. It's very difficult to make a sound out of reed. Usually it takes 6 months to make the first sound, and that's why there are very few reed flute players in the world. And then it takes about another 10 years to master it. But it goes very, very, it goes back thousands of years ago. It's not a man-made instrument. This is made by nature. Of course, who made the nature? God. As a believer, we believe that God made the nature. So this was just a piece of reed flute broken. And one day someone was passing and hears this funny but beautiful sound from the forest, different than the sound he usually would hear. And he follows the sound and follows and follows, and going up and down the hills and trees and rivers, finally finds this on the floor or in the jungle, and the wind was blowing in the right angle of this diameter and makes the sound. Some people make the sound with the bottle, if you've noticed the tip of the bottle. So, and he picks it up and he brings it home, and from there it develops. So this happened millennia ago. Already in the Old Testament is mentioned that King David, one of the instruments he played amongst many. He was not only a multi-instrumentalist, but also a creator of many musical instruments, such as the David's harp that is named after him. So he played this, and again, David is mentioned in the Quran many times, and his ney was miraculous, as many other miracles he had. It is said that before his meetings with neighboring countries, kings and sultans, he would play music and kind of like intoxicate them with that divine love, and then he would negotiate, and he was always successful. So maybe we should suggest that to our government to spread more music. So so the Persian ney is modeled after King David's ney. It has 7 joints and also has 7 sound holes. 7 is said to be a divine number, 7 archangels, 7 days of creation. Help me out. 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 notes to music. Somebody said 7-Eleven back there. So the list goes on. That was a joke, Paula, forgive me. So this instrument, it's said to have the highest healing power. So in the ancient Persia, they used to cure some of the illnesses that were otherwise not curable. I do understand you have one of the most advanced cancer center in Denver. I was educated by, incidentally, it's time to appreciate and give applause to Jessica, who took us from the airplane, saved us, brought us here, and organized all our movements within your city. Give it up for Jessica. So, yes, and so they used to do this for and now where I live in New York City, my home is next door to Mount Sinai Hospital, where they also are going back to music therapy. So music therapy is becoming very, very important these days in the hospitals. And New York University started teaching now, sound therapy and all that. Of course, again, my humble opinion is we have lost a great deal of the ancient knowledge and achievement we have, but that doesn't mean we're never going to learn it. There's always a start. Again, those with the good intention, godly intention, who really seek to learn it, they will get inspired. And but let's hear a little bit of a ney. Let's have also Yvette's reading of Rumi's opinion on the ney.
Listen to the reed that is complaining and narrating the story of separation. Ever since they have plucked me from the reed land, my laments have driven men and women to deep sorrow. I want someone with a heart pierced by abandonment, so that I may tell him about the pain of my longing. He who falls aloof from his origin seeks an opportunity to find it again. I am mournful in all sorts of company, and am sought by the happy as well as by the unhappy. Everyone becomes friends with me according to his faculty of perception, and many do not seek my inner secret. My secret is not distant from my cries, but physical eyes and ears do not possess the light to see it. In fact, the body from the spirit and the spirit from the body are not concealed, yet not too many are allowed to see it. The sound of the ney is fire. It is not the ordinary wind. But he who does not have this fire, may he become non-existent. It is the fire of divine love that has entered the nay. It is the yearning for love that has brought the wine into action. The nay is friends with anyone who has been deserted, and its musical divisions have torn off veils too. Who has seen an antidote as well as a poison like the nay? Who has seen a sympathizing and longing lover like the nay?
Thank you so much. So, for the interest of time, as we came to end of our time, we're going to end with the nay. So let's delve within and try to heal our inner selves with the sound of nay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Without you, this would not have been possible. And thank you for sending all this energy to us. The Sufi gatherings are all about collective prayers. Is important to. That's why all the houses of worship are built. You know, praying alone, meditating alone, chanting alone is wonderful, but it is never going to have the same effect of groups. That is why it's so encouraged in every religion, every faith, to get together with unified hearts and do the collective prayers. So thanks for coming out. And once again, we thank our host, Paul, for bringing us together. So give it up for Paul. God bless you. Hopefully we see you again. We were here actually 5 years ago. Some of you might have seen us. We did actually a tour. We did a university and then a church. Paul knows all the details, but coming back here was a very good experience. Gail was with us when we were here 5 years ago. You have a beautiful town, and we love your place, your home. But this is the first time in this location, and it's very beautiful. God bless you all. Till next time.
I'm on? Okay. Amir and Gail and Yvette, thank you so very much for blessing us this evening, not just with the music, but with the words, allowing us and reminding us to enter into that deeper dimension. So thank you. On behalf of all of us, we're most grateful.